What's up, everyone? First off, apologies for yesterday. As per usual, my skills at this kind of stuff are very under par. So things that I did for the last 2 days, I lost, and so I'm going to start off doing the hookers, and then I'll do another video with the locks of my top 5, because I want to keep this going, keep everybody interested, keep everybody informed, and so that if rugby does start again, then everyone will still be up to date. I hope everyone's doing well within their bubbles and sticking to their bubbles and doing bubbles with their kids, if you guys got kids, and trying to keep them entertained, because I'm getting sick of my girls. I'm just getting sick of trying to do their homework with them and their schoolwork, because there's always that possibility that they're going to ask you a question that you don't know, and then to get away from that question you have to growl them like it was their fault and just to save face, because we've got too much pride. But this is what we're going to do with the hookers. Obviously, again, we're going to name the top 5 hookers, and then I'm going to go through all of them and why I like them and what I thought they brought to the game and why I looked at them and selected them and all that kind of stuff within my top 5. And these are just all my opinions again. Obviously, you guys have all got yours, and this is pretty much so that you guys can sort of have your list of guys that you think are really good and that we've all seen this year, and then either agree or disagree with me, and please leave your comments and all that kind of stuff, so that there's I also like I've said hundreds of times, I learn a lot from people's point of views too, because I don't see everything. So if someone gives me a different look, and I may even be persuaded to go, well, yeah, they're right, and I think I've got this wrong, and rankings change or opinions change and things like that. So here are my top 5 for hookers. My number 1 hooker is Shay Potaka from New Plymouth Boys High School. Yes, he's the number 8, but I still think that if they changed him to a hooker, he would be the best hooker in the country. My second one is Tane Colosse from Rotorua Boys. The third one is another number 8, Hendrix Taylor, who has played a hooker a few times, but he is just like Shay in terms of if they change him over, then they would stay. Then they would be in a top 5 position. My fourth one is Nick Mully from St. Peter's College up in Auckland. And then my fifth one is Leonty Tuiloma, who's from Rathkill College. And then I've got a few other guys sort of in a bracket, because there's a lot of good hookers this year, and there's a lot of quality guys that there's not very much of a gap between all these different players, and from the top 5s down to even like the next 5 or 6, because there's a few guys that I think should be considered. And even next year, the group of hookers, in terms of rankings to the guys who are the sort of the upper level guys from this year, the year 12s are not that far away from the hookers from this year. So even next year, in terms of hookers, there's going to be a massive battle between those guys. And then because we've got these year 11s coming through, like it's going to be for the next 2-3 years, hookers are going to be plenty. There's going to be so many of them. They're going to be really good. And so the first one, we'll start off with the first one, Shay Potaka, right? So Shay Potaka, the captain and number 8 for New Plymouth Boys. If you've seen him play, he's a short, stocky, really muscular, explosive guy who has a league background, and he is just a battling ram, and he's very similar to what Samasone Tokuyaho is now, who's the Chiefs and the All Blacks. He plays like him, and so like if you were to get him in those positions, and to get him running sort of the same lines as that, and which he does for his school anyway, and the reason why I think he's so good, he can 100% change a team around from switching from number 8 into hooker. I even think if he did it this year, I kind of think that he didn't do it this year because I personally think that the team needs was not at hooker, because they've already got a very good hooker, but they needed some cover in loose forward in number 8, and I think that he stayed there because of that. Now, I don't know, and this is just my opinion, right? So I don't know if New Zealand secondary schools is even looking at him for a hooker, but this is my personal preference, that I think that if he was to change the hooker, he would be the best in the country. Now, close behind him, because of very similar in size, shape, and even the way in which they play, is Tane Colosse from Rotorua Boys. And, you know, his shift from St. Kennigan's down to Rotorua Boys, to me, was probably the best thing for him. Was probably the best move that he made in terms of being able to stay at that high level of games, high level of talent, being in a team that was able to adapt to his playing ability, and was beneficial in the terms that he stayed a lot more positive in a winning positive team, instead of staying at St. Kitts, where they've got a massive rebuilding year and they've got a whole bunch of young fellas, and he would have been, you know, sort of the Lone Ranger leader on that team with a few other guys like Ben Ake and Jade Stewart in that. And so to me, in terms of his rugby side of things, with him moving to Rotorua Boys, made a massive difference to the way that he was looked at and to the way that he played. Because if you watch his games and how many opportunities he had to be, and this is the way that Rotorua Boys sort of played him, is that he always had really good opportunities to run the ball. He always was in the best position that he was able to get the ball on a front foot and then be able to show exactly what he could do. And in terms of, like, if you were to like watch his games and you were to do sort of a scouting report on him, there'll be a lot of good things about that you could write about his game and what he does, because Rotorua Boys obviously just looked at him and goes, yeah, this is the power that he brings. This is his natural ability and his best trait about him, especially physical, and his, you know, the attributes in which he brings is that speed, power, and aggressive, you know, run game. And then they just pretty much magnified it and goes, we'll just give him all the chance and opportunity to show them what he can do. And it would be a solid report once the reports come out of his scouting report of what he can actually do, and it's going to be really impressive. And I don't know who's taking care of the hookers this year in terms of selections for New Zealand secondary schools and for the Barbarians, but I think his highlight tape will be pretty easy to write up. He does great in the scrums. He's all right in the scrums. He doesn't throw that much, because I've also got Sione Tupou, who's another hooker that everyone should probably watch out for as well for next year. But Sione used to throw him the ball, and then he just scrummed at hooker. You know, see that as what you may, of like if that's a weakness or not. I don't think so myself. In terms of selections for New Zealand secondary schools, I would probably still take him and just make him practice how to throw. Hendrix Taylor is the third one, and like I said before, he is like Shay. Shay and Hendrix are more similar than Shay and Tane are similar, and I mean it in the way of the style in which they run. Hendrix is a really aggressive runner, plays a lot more tighter, plays a lot more closer to the ruck. But even his leg drive after contact is really important, because he's not an easy one to bring down. He's not a guy that you can pretty much just tackle one-on-one. You have to double up and sometimes triple up on the tacklers that you send at him. So what I notice a lot of times in the I forgot what it's called, Miles Toyota championship, is that a lot of guys would pinpoint him and make sure that he wasn't getting a lot of the extra ground that he got. And so, and rightfully so, like that's what you're supposed to do. You know, coaches are supposed to go out there and scout other teams' talent and go, well, when we play this guy, we can't let him do that kind of stuff. So he had a lot of those kind of situations that he was put in. Like Shay, Hendrix will probably have to go through some throwing and being able to hit those all on the mark kind of thing. And I don't think it'll be too much for him to adapt to, and to be able to, you know, I guess I guess, be able to add to his game as that throwing game. And like we've got the best coaches in the world here in New Zealand as a whole, and so there's always going to be guys within development and academies and stuff like that who will take him aside and be like, this is what you need to do for you to up your level, and so you just get it done kind of thing. So that's the kind of thing that I guess we're going to look forward to in terms of Hendrix Taylor and the way that he develops as a player if he shifts to hooker. This is the thing that I kind of imagine is that Shay and Hendrix, once they get to senior rugby, they're going to have to go there because you've got a lot of taller players in number 8 for senior rugby. Got a lot of guys that are more physically, I guess, developed for that position alone, where they would have to go to really small time teams to be able to stay within the position that they want to play. Shane and that are in good, rugby cities that have a lot of players, and so I kind of, and this is my opinion, I don't think that they'll get the spots that they want to get if they were going to try and stay at number 8. I think they will just be given to more senior, bigger, physically, ready or fit to the mold that New Zealand wants as our number 8. We don't look for small number 8s or anything like that, like the all taller. My 5th pick is Nick Mully, who I looked at the beginning of the year, and he was another guy that I kind of watched week after week and made sure that him moving up was warranted and rewarded. I didn't want to move him up just because he was part of a team that was winning. I wanted to make sure that I moved him up because isolating him and what he did as a role, it was like rewarding him personally just for that, for his own deeds and his own actions and his own core roles within the team. I didn't want it to be just because St. Peter's was a good team altogether. What he does as a player, especially with his his low running style and his ability to stay low and still drive forward, keeping his balance, I think is like one really impressive thing about his game. And even at scrum time, when he sets the scrums, he sets it pretty low and low enough and steady enough that the props can get down there, and that even on engagement that they stay at a proper level, and then they don't shift around and all that kind of stuff too, because I've seen that a lot of times where hookers set it so low that the props are finding it hard to get down there, and then on engagement there's just bent backs all over the place and they look like hills, flipping in the scrum. And so I think that's something that Nick brings to a front row, and I think even his throwing is going to be a massive benefit to the role in which they would want him to play if he was part of a New Zealand secondary Barbarian selection. He's one that I really like, and just his overall physicalness and toughness on the field, and he's just one of those guys that just doesn't take a step back. So it's like really. It's really cool to watch and really promising to watch too. Leonty Tuiloma is the 5th one on the list from Rathkill College, and I know a lot of people probably don't know Rathkill and probably only seen them because they're looking at the scores on High School Top 200, but part of the CNI squad, and he's a young year 13. I guess if he wanted to, he could come back. If he wanted to come back to high school, he could come back. I'm not too sure if he is. I don't really know how Rathkill is in terms of bringing back year 14s. That probably if they needed more credits, but he's one guy that I thought was a bit different from everybody else, because I think his skill set in terms of playmaking is a bit better than everybody else on this team. And his agility and his ability to get around the field, his footwork as well on impact, and actually he's just a bit more flash than everybody else. He's got a bit more flair than everybody else on the top 5 that I have there. And even within his team and throughout this year, I thought that he played a solid season. And even seeing him live, I think, man, this kid is a bit different from most of the hookers that I've seen this year, and that's what I thought was real impressive about him. and why I continually rank them high, even the best hooker within the CNI competition too. And he's just, I just think he's one of those players, and being a young year 13, obviously if he returned back next year, he'd be probably be the best hooker in the country if he returned. But at the same time, he's going to be in a bunch. He's going to be in that block of players that have all coming back. That is just like, man, this is going to be a lot of competition for him. And so, like, that's my top 5. And then the other ones that I kind of looked for is that, like, obviously Junior Turutau is from Wesley College is another one who I really, really like. And just being part of that team, who's a massive rebuilding team, he had to take a lot of the responsibility, and obviously couldn't, and had to do a bit more than what his role was as a hooker. He had to do pretty much like other things just to cover for players, and being one of the experienced guys and the captain, that's just what you have to do too. He just had to play that role anyway. So Junior Turutau is another one I really liked. Sean Ralph from Hamilton Boys is another one that I had on that list, on that short list, and was a player that I think is probably one of the best guys going around in terms of field work. Getting work done around the field with a high work rate. I think he's got one of the highest work rates in there. But there were points where I thought that his throwing, and I don't think this is like a secret to him either, is that his throwing was off quite a bit. There was just a lot more bad throws than good throws, and a lot of these guys struggle. I mean, like even Tane Colosse, he's probably just not a better thrower than Sonia Tupou is, and so Ralph was kind of the same. Sean Ralph was kind of the same. It's just like, he may struggle now, but I think in club rugby he's going to be fine, and going on to, Waikato under-19s and Chiefs under-20s, all that kind of stuff. I think he'll be fine. Dylan Irvine is probably the other one from Nelson College, who I really liked as well. High work rate, kind of grunt kind of player. Not flashy at all, so you're not going to be seeing these big, massive breaks, but he's always a great support guy and sort of the first one to blow over the rucks, all that kind of stuff. Fatai Koloi is the other one from King's High School, and he was one of the other guys that, and I'm really honest in the point where, like, I don't know who's better than who in that lot. I just know that who I prefer and who I would rather have in a team if I was to use those guys. And so, like, even if I don't see the value in what they do in other systems, they're just the best. And so I think, to me, it's just more system based of who you would rather have. And Fatai is one of those guys too. Lincoln Winter is probably another guy like that from St. Paul's, who sort of a converted blindside number 8, open side 2 hooker. And he's probably going to be one of those guys that once he gets to club rugby, he's going to be a gun, and is really going to take it, because he's such a smart player, such a really good IQ, rugby IQ, and a good leader as well. And he's one of those guys. One of the fellas that just gets it done. He doesn't really complain or anything like that. Jack Taylor's kind of like that too. With Southland Boys, is like me watching Jack Taylor and the way that he played against Otago Boys is kind of the way that I've seen him play. And every time I've watched him, which is 4 times this year, it just reiterated how good he actually was and what I actually thought of him too. And so he was one of those guys. Now, one guy that I wasn't sure of, and the reason why I didn't add him to the props either, is A1 Lolofi, is that I don't know whether he's a hooker or a prop. He does throw for his team, but he can prop and he can hook as well, but I don't know which one he actually is. I'm not even too sure that their coaches know or know which one they prefer from him, if they want him to be the good hooker or the good prop, or where his true value lies is kind of thing. Because when you watch A1 play, just like in that final and even in the semi-finals, in the round games, like he just gets he chances stuff, but it's like calculated chances. Like there was a lot of times where he put his hand out to give that pass, and a lot of them he pushed, but he had the right idea. And that's how I saw it. It's like he had the right idea. Execution wasn't great, but the right idea was there. I'm more about the right idea, and then this execution comes later. Of like, if it pays, it pays. But I think if you've got the right idea, and first 15 rugby at least, is that like, yeah, at least he got that part. He got that side of it down, so that as he gets better and better, the execution will come later, kind of thing. And to me, A1 and the way that his run game, low body position, things like that, like I value a lot. And he's another one that's a young year 13 that I don't know if he's coming back or not. But if he does, he's going to be in that conversation of like whether he's one of the best hookers in the country or one of the best props in the country. He's going to be one of them. And then we go to our year 12s. We got Vernon Basin from Fielding High School. He's like, I think he's actually got probably the biggest ceiling of them all that are returning, because there's him, there's King's House Tupuola from Lindisfarne College, and there's Toby Mellon from St. Pat's Silverstream, who's the other one that I really like too, and who's the other one that I think is another guy to probably watch out for. Because in 1 year, and like all these guys are at that stage that it's just like one off season of hard training and, you know, hard work and fitness and all that kind of stuff. And the good thing about hooker is that like you can practice your throws and you don't need anyone around, you know, like you just need a ball and then you got your goalpost and you just pinpoint your places that you want to throw, and, you know, get down on your knees and, you know, get the ball up high enough and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and be able to do that, you know, be accurate and precise with the way that you want to do it. And so a lot of these hookers just one really good off season and they'll be fine, and they'll come back, you know, flipping gunning. The competition is going to be flipping stacked next year for the next 2 years. If these young year 13s come back like Leon Tuiloma and Junior Torutau, A1 Lofi, and those guys. If those guys come back as well as the year 12s, which is Vern Kinghouse and also Toby, that position is going to be stacked. It's going to be stacked. That's my top 5 for the hookers. High school top 200. Peace.